Hello folks and welcome. Manjaro Xfce desktop. Actually the latest version as of 4/8/2023. Just downloaded that yesterday. You can also check out the differences on the previous version to the new version if you want to go to DistroWatch and click on the Manjaro and on DistroWatch, and you down at the bottom of their screen it'll show you the newer packages that are currently on this distribution. Today I'm going to talk about backups using Rsync and Grsync, and I'll explain also creating scripts, how to use scripts, and how they can work for you to your benefit for backups and versatility. You probably already are using Rsync, and I'll point out some of the utilities and applications that currently use Rsync. At least you should have one installed right now. But anyways, I will make mention that these videos are more than 2 minutes. All my videos are more than 2 minutes on my YouTube site. They all have chapters and timelines. I encourage that you read my About section and also investigate the Community tab if you're wanting to do keyword searches. This video is geared toward anyone, and I'm going to treat this as someone that doesn't know how to write scripts and has never used the Rsync or Grsync tools. So some of you folks that already know how to do some of this stuff may find this a little slow, but in general, this is why I over-explain a lot of things on my new channel. Today I'm filming in 1920 by 1080. And if you are wanting to readjust your player, there's a gear on your YouTube player that you can click to readjust your screen resolution. Because I'm using really big text right now, and as I move on, things will get a little smaller. So welcome, folks. Let's open up that and talk about some devices. I'll resize the icons and turn off my hidden files, which I'll make mention toward the end of the video of the importance of not copying hidden files. Possibly. I have a USB stick and a USB hard drive. There are many ways to format these USB storage devices. You can use the built-in tools like gparted. You can also install tools like the GNOME disk utility through the add and remove software utility. You can also install something out of terminal. So for you folks that like to install stuff out of terminal, I'll pull up my history buffer. You can, number 2 is PMAC install Mint Stick. Mint Stick looks like this. It's probably the easiest tool to explain how to use. All I do is type in USB. USB stick formatter. Since both these devices are USB based, the stick formatter will find both of them. If it's connected to a USB port, the stick formatter will find even a hard drive. So that's a PNY CS900 240 gigabyte solid state drive connected to a USB 3 cable. The device below it is a USB 3 stick. That's the slowest of the devices. Now, it doesn't matter which one I pick, I can format them with 4 different types of formats. FAT32 is the most compatible, file allocation table 32. That way it will be compatible not only with Linux, but Mac and Windows. Also, if you decide to use extension 4, be prepared to deal with permissions. Usually they format with root permissions, but anyways, FAT32 is pretty simple to use and I can share those files. So basically pick your device, and then the label is the important thing I'm going to talk about. I don't like to put spaces in labels when I deal with using scripts, and I'll talk about scripts in this video. I would prefer to use stuff like this, USB 1. Or 2, or 3, or 4, whatever you want to use. Since I have 2 devices, I called one of them USB 1 and the other one USB 2 with no spaces. The stick formatter tool only defaults to uppercase letters. Your GNOME disk utility, you can use upper and lowercase letters. I would also be very consistent about your labeling, because your scripts also need to be literal when you write them, whether you use uppercase letters or lowercase. But if you use stick formatter, uppercase letters. But more importantly, I'll redefine that when I get going. If you hit format, even with this, it'll only take about 15 seconds or less. Now let's move on to what I'm about to do here. So I'm going to open up several new windows. You'll see why in a second. So I can show you what I'm doing. All right, so I have Larry, our user. He's just a made-up name. He has documents. He's got all kinds of folders, including this thing that says junk on it. And there's stuff in here. They're just test files. As a matter of fact, I'm going to delete 2 of these out of here to make it simple, because these are the only ones that contain music. You can actually see the music in here. And the same thing goes with pictures. I have nothing else in here, so that's just pictures. Documents only has a script folder and some extra documents. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today, is scripts first. And then I'll talk about this tool right here. And you will have to install Grsync. Grsync normally is used with one source to one destination at a time. I'll cover that a little bit later. And more importantly, I will make mention of not trying to sync up your whole folder because they contain hidden files. Let me give you the example of that. There's a lot of stuff in here. You probably don't need this under general conditions. So let's deal with just simple folders. Now there's a couple of different ways you can do this. You can do it the old-fashioned way, right-click, copy, and paste, or drag the folder and paste. I mean drag the folder, just drop it. And then a week later, this device has the same folder, and you do the same thing, and it's going to complain, right? That you got duplicates? All right, that's very standard. So isn't there a better method of actually having a tool that if you already have the folder here, is to have the machine check to see which files are different from your current document folder to the one that's on the device? There sure is, and it's called Rsync. You probably already are using Rsync. Are you using Timeshift for a system restore utility? Let me open up my Rsync for a second. Timeshift. So you can see that the new name of the new Manjaro is Talos. And more importantly, I'm going to basically open up the wizard for a second. You more than likely chose Rsync when you actually installed that tool. That's the only thing I was going to make mention of. So that's what Rsync is also used on your system for. And Timeshift is found on many distributions. Now, I want to make some copies to these things of my home folders. So what I did was or we'll just name the guy Larry. Larry wrote some scripts. And in the script, he wrote one and then copied them. So the first script in here is written with a text editor. In this case, it's called Mousepad. It's the only text editor that's currently installed. And there are many text editors out there. The text editor is used to write scripts because usually I don't recommend anything like a word processor. That way everything is formulated using simple text. And I'll explain all these lines in a second. So this one is going to rsync documents to USB 2 only. This script here, open it up with Mousepad, is going to sync up the pictures folder to 2 devices. This one should be USB 1 and this is USB 2. Now that's reflected in the status bar here. So that's what that script does. And this one here is multiple lines. Multiple folders going to multiple devices. In other words, documents, music, pictures going to USB 1, and then documents, music, pictures, downloads, and junk going over to USB 2. So I'm going to create this a little bit later, but more importantly, I'm going to first execute these or run these scripts, or actually just this one first. This is just a simple explanation of what these are. I started with this and made copies, and then I added some extra lines. That's all I did in here. To run these scripts directly from the folder, I need to turn on a feature. So right now, if I double click, it just opens up my text editor Mousepad. If I wanted to physically run it by right-clicking and executing, you notice the execute statement is not in here. So to do that, I need to go to Edit, Preferences, Advanced, and turn this on. This may not be everybody's cup of tea or possibly not comfortable with this, but I'm going to show it anyways. And then you can decide to do whatever you want. Now, if I double click on this thing, it'll actually perform that, or I can right click and execute and do the same. So let me run this first for you. So while that's running, I'm making folders and subfolders. I'm going to do another thing in here. I'm going to right click and I'm going to send this as a desktop link right here. And then I'm going to drag it over to here and leave it there for a second. And then I'm going to right click on the screen while it's still making folders, because it's going to take a while to back up to 2 devices. I'm going to create a launcher. And yes, this will continue creating as many folders as I told it to. So a launcher is an interesting thing. You see this little guy in the corner? Have you ever had the displeasure of deleting that by accident? Okay, if you do, you can create one of these in 10 seconds. Just type in LOG, pick that second one down, and hit the create button twice. Once, twice. You now have a new logout key. And you can right click on it and open with create launcher on panel. It'll send it to the corner. Just for you folks to want to know how to do that real quick. Now I'm going to right click and create a launcher for this guy. Give it a name. I'm more likely going to use the same. Back up, all. Just to give it the same name. Comments are optional, so you can put whatever you want there. The command, however, I am going to click the box here and point to this script in home, Larry's document script file. So we are in home, documents, scripts, backup all. It's the same as my little shortcut here. But I can put a fancy icon instead of that weird looking icon there. This is if you want. You don't have to do this. I'm just showing you some options. You can pick any icons out of this thing. Doesn't matter what it is. Okay? Any icon. And then hit create. Now I'll drag these 2 guys over here. Both of these will perform the same action. They're just pointers. If you want to think about that arrow, it just points to that script file. How do you know what this does? Right click, properties. It says link target is Larry document script backup all. This is the name of the script. This one is edit launcher. Command line is, I have to scroll, script backup all. So it's the same, in other words. Double click on either one of these things. It performs the same action. Now that this one is done, what happens is I'm going to turn this feature off where it has the execute. This is how you normally have your system set up. Okay, so that's one of the reasons that I wanted to make mention of these, because you can't run these scripts directly unless you turn that feature on. But you can certainly put shortcuts on your desktop and also create launchers. They do the same job. All right, since this guy is slow boat and this guy is faster, I'm going to delete these on purpose, because it'll create these faster than these will. So I'm going to first click this one, and you'll start seeing this will make backup folders immediately. Even though that script says, let me point to the script here, it says do USB 1 first. But what it does is it checks to see if they match at the same time, and then it creates the other folders. Okay, it's finished actually. Now I'm going to delete them again. I'm really making this drive work hard. So now this time I'm going to click this one. This is just a link to that script. It's going to do the exact same thing. So whether you use the link or the fancy launcher, that's all up to you. So now we're clear on that. Now the caveat to this is, not the caveat, but my tip of the day for this is if you decide to open up Mousepad or any other text editor and remove or add lines, because you can do this rather quickly. You can highlight a line and copy it. And let's say you added a third USB device. It'll be another one listed as USB 3. So what I'm going to do here in this case is I'm going to maybe copy junk over to USB 3 and then save this. Okay. If I do that, and I already have a link on my desktop, my advice to you, I'm not going to hit save. I'm going to just don't save. If my advice to you, if you edit the script file, is to eliminate the shortcuts and then recreate them. In other words, just get rid of them, because you can create these in a couple seconds. As in this case, all you got to do is send that link to your desktop. It's already here. As in the launcher case, it takes an extra 10 seconds to fill in these boxes. Well, maybe 15 seconds. Okay, so only if you're editing. If you are deleted the shortcut by accident and you want to do another one, no big deal. It's not the golden rule, but it's one of my rules for advice to keep them in sync. And I'm not using rsync as a pun. I'm just trying to make you understand that sometimes links are a little bit flaky when you start altering information. So if you didn't do any changes to the actual script, then I wouldn't worry about it. All right, you don't have to use any of that stuff. You can run the script directly from the folder as long as you turn this guy on right here. All right, so far so good. Now let me create one from scratch. Do I want to delete these out of here? Why not? Let's just keep abusing these things. So go to your Manjaro menu and type in text, whatever you have installed. You should have Mousepad installed already. You could install other text editors. Again, a text editor is what I recommend to use to make scripts. So I'm going to hit my Shift key and the number 3, which produces a pound. Then I'm still holding the Shift key and I'm going to press the number 1 key and it produces an exclamation point. Then I'm going to hit /, which is normally found near your Enter key. Then I'm going to type in bin and / again and bash. Bash stands for born again shell. Enter. Now my bin bash line is complete. Now I can put in rsync statements. Rsync, you can look up on the internet. Again, you're more likely already using rsync if you're using the utility timeshift. If you're using that, you're already using rsync. But I'm going to use rsync in a different way than the rsync timeshift utility does. I'm going to be copying personal folders. They are copying your system folders. So Rsync has many options. That's why I actually encourage that you look that up on the internet yourself. Rsync space, and option here is -A, archive, another space. The tilde, shift, tilde, you normally found next to your number 1 key on the left on your upper row. Another /, and now I need to pick a folder. I'll pick music just to make it simple. Then I'm going to hit space. That is the source. Tilde just means home folder Larry in this case. That's what the tilde is doing for me. I'm not typing the whole thing out. I'm doing a shortcut, as one would say. Now, where are we going to write the script to? I have two options. The USB 2 is faster than the stick. So let me point at USB 2 for a second, and I want you to see what that first line says. It says /run media /Larry USB 2. You can right click on the object or the USB device, and you see the location part. Take your mouse and drag it across, right click and copy that. Click in your script or your text file currently and right click and paste that. Put in one / and the name of the device is in this case USB 2 with the uppercase letters. What would happen if I do that? This will be a failed script because it's not spelled correctly. USB 2 is in uppercase letters on my device, so I need to match that. Now it'll match. Now, one more check that I like to encourage people to do when they first start learning scripts. Click next to the source and hit delete until the / butts up against it. And then hit the space bar once. That way you're ensured one space. Can you tell there's two spaces in there by looking at that? Some people can, but most people can't. So click next to the C and music or whatever the name of your folder is and hit delete until you see that / butt right up against it. Then hit the space bar only once. You only want one space in there. Now I'm going to hit save as, and then we're going to save it in the Larry's document script folder, and we're going to call that one test 1. It's currently a text file, okay? That's okay. But it does understand and you want to make it a script file because it turned this into blue, which means that's a bash command, born again shell command. So what I'm going to do here is click that closed. If you didn't have it open here, then go find where you saved your script and open the script. You're still not done yet. So the only difference between this one and this one here, actually all three of these, I'll click the one next to it, is the permissions is set to allow this to run as a program. The newly created one is not. You have to physically do this yourself. Program. Allow this file to run as a program. Now it's ready to run. I can't, if I double click, why is it opening in a text editor? Because I don't have this set to run as a shell script. That's okay though. I can right click and send it to my desktop. I can also create a launcher, right? Right click, create launcher. Okay. So I'm going to run that script. And what is that going to do again? It's going to take my music folder and send it to USB 2 as a backup. And there we have it. And it's creating those music things as we speak. It creates the folders first, and then it starts syncing up the subfolders and the contents. So far, so good? All right. So that's creating a script. That's just a link to that. That's all that is. And the same thing would be to go to create a launcher, give it a name. Comments are optional. Make sure the command points to the script you want to use, and then you can put a fancy icon or no icon. What happens if you put no icon? I'm going to use the same identification on this. And I'm going to go to my script and do test 1. And you can, now that you saw it says executable, because I actually converted it earlier, I'm going to use no icon this time. All it gives me is a gear symbol. It does the exact same thing though. But since I've already synced it up, I'm going to have to delete it for you to see it. There we go. Okay. And it's still syncing because my blue light is still flashing, so that means it created the primary folder, the subfolders, and now it's working on all the underlying stuff that has, and now it's finished. All right, so I'm going to delete that one more time to abuse it some more, and I'm going to use the link only. It does the exact same job as this. The only difference between the two is I can turn and make fancy icons with it. Versus this one over here. You click that and it's not really easy to change the icon because it's a link. And some people, that's all you need. But you don't have to use these at all. Again, if you just want to run that, turn this on temporarily if you like. I'll delete it one more time and double click on it this time. There we go. Now it's done. All right, so these are scripts. You can copy these also. So let's say you wanted to use this script right here. Since I have the execute bit turned on, I'm going to not risk triggering it, so I'm going to turn this feature off. That's all up to you. So what's in that script is it's going to rsync pictures to 2 different devices, but I can also add things to it. So let me right click and copy that script. Right click and copy that script and paste it. So now it's a copy of this one. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open that script up and add some extra lines. So I am going to grab a hold of one of these and copy it, hit enter. I can either use Control V or right click and hit paste. That's all up to you. I'll do the Control V on the first one. And since that's already a duplicate, I'm just going to change the name. All right, delete once, hit the space bar. Okay, that looks like it's properly formulated. Click at the end, hit enter. This time I'm going to right click and hit paste because it's still holding that information in the buffer. So this time I'm going to also change that to documents. Take a look at the spacing. Since this has the same name on it, it looks exactly like one space, so I don't need to deal with that part, but I'm going to change the end to USB 1. Now I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to rename that. I'm going to call that one backup something. How about backup 3? So backup 3 is going to do what for me? Backup 3 is going to back up pictures to 1 and 2 and documents to 1 and 2, USB respective devices. All right, so this already has a music folder, so it doesn't care. But it does care I'm going to right click and send a link to my desktop and drag it over here so you can see it and run it. And now it's going to create your pictures folder on both devices, and the other ones are going to be documents on both devices. That's how simple it is to copy and paste a script. Why didn't I have to right click on that script and add the permissions? Because I copied the script. It copied everything with it, including the bit that turns on that run as a program. Okay, and again, this is just a link to that script. That's all this thing is. Okay, and again, if you want to run the scripts directly out of the folder, just turn this one on. All right, now I'm done talking about scripts in general. You can see how powerful they can be. You can write as many as you want. Let's talk about GR for a second. So Grsync has to be installed. Let me close this. And Grsync in general is used for syncing up a single source to a single destination. Grsync is graphical rsync. I also encourage that you look up this one on the internet also, especially if you're going to change some of this information. If you keep the defaults, you're good to go. If you add some of these other options, my highly suggested advice to you is to go ahead and type in SC and look for your screenshot tool and do an active screenshot of active window. You don't have to use the mouse pointer, but at least take a picture of the settings before you alter them if you're not too sure how to use this tool. But I will walk you through this nonetheless. Under default conditions, these are blank. It'll look just like this. So let me walk through the whole thing for you so you'll understand it a little bit better if you've never used Rsync. Under File, you have Browse Source and Destination. What are you going to be copying and where to is all that means. Source is the top, destination is the bottom. Switch source and destination. Be careful with this one. People can get confused rather easily. Simulation is what it says, execute is what it says. Now I'm going to show you the rsync line, and then I'm going to drop over to Larry's script folder and pull up one of my scripts here in a mousepad editor, and then we're going to compare these two. I'm using rsync space -a. They're using rsync space -r-t-v-. In other words, it's a mouthful. The double dash just means there's nothing here. So basically it's going to be rsyncing using these commands or options. If I populate this with source and destination, I'll just do music and to USB 2, I guess. That's fine. Now the new rsync line is going to look a little different. Now the front end of this is the same, except it says, instead of saying tilde on it, it says home Larry music. This will be tilde/music on my script. And then the back end is run media Larry blah blah blah. It's the same. So far so good? Hopefully. Okay, you can also screenshot on the preferences if you want to make some changes. And there's a quit and then sessions. What's a session? This is a session. Anytime you do something like that, you can create and give it a name. Add, delete, import, and export. Plus, adding a session. Here's a typical one. I have only one. Okay, that's a session. And that's normally default looks like this. So backup one would be like that. Okay, got the idea? So you get the plus, add, you can also remove, and this is called a dry run, whatever you have selected here. So currently it's not going to do anything. It's empty. So I need to populate that with something. So here we go, music, going to what? How about USB 2? Okay. This is the actual run button. So let me get rid of the script. Where are we sending this to? USB 2. That would be this one. What do you think it's going to do? Because it already has a music folder. Absolutely nothing. It'll just complete immediately. It's done. Because it has nothing to do. Let me close this and delete that folder and give it something to do. Now it has, I forced it to create that folder and sync. Now you can see it syncing. And all the music to go with it. And however big that folder is however long it's going to take. This is the one I'm going to actually caution you on. A lot of people go, well, why can't I do my home folder? You can. And I'm going to do that for you. But I'm going to show you something while I'm doing it. I'm going to send it to the fastest device that I have. And I'm also going to make sure I have plenty of space. Because when I sync up a complete home folder, you are not only syncing up these files, but you are also syncing up these files. Everything that's in here to that device. Let me perform that now. I want you to notice it's stuck on the dot cache. It's actually here, down here right now. It's already created the main folders, but there's still nothing in here. And it won't be in here for a good couple minutes, depending on how many folders and stuff that it has to go through. So it's currently still sitting at dot cache. Now I'm going to turn on the hidden files on the lower USB 2 device. It's stuck in here under Cache Mozilla. It's here under Firefox. It's somewhere in here. It's syncing. I don't know which subfolder it's working on. It's probably in here somewhere. I'm going to back this out. Every one of these USB stick also has a hidden trash can. I'm going to turn that off. Do you see where the progress bar is? It's still on dot cache. It's still here, but syncing it here. It's going to be a while. So you have hidden folders. You also have hidden files. A lot of you folks already know what a bash history is, but I'll point it out anyways. You saw where I pointed that out when I brought up the history on my terminal? Well, that's where that's located. And that's the command for that USB stick formatter. It's still stuck on cache. I am not going to sit there and wait. I'm going to hit stop. So you can see probably one of the reasons you don't want to do this. However, if you are wanting every single folder inside of your home folder, then certainly you can format. Just be prepared that it's going to copy not only the regular folders, but all the subfolders that are also hidden. And in most cases, people do not need this. In most, 98% of the time, people do not need all that stuff. All right, since this is incomplete, I am going to delete that. So Grsync is one folder, one source to one destination at a time, and you can change that at will. On that note, I would probably, if you're doing multiple folders to multiple destination, is to use scripts. Thank you for watching, folks.